You said something to me a while back, years ago, I think, when we did one of these podcasts. You said, I quit FFL more than anyone.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Did you actually quit?
Well, there's two things you have to have: a good sense of humor and a bad memory. So
I like that.
there were several times I quit, like on a Wednesday night,
Yeah.
but when I woke up Thursday, I forgot. So, I'd halfway through the day, I'd be like, isn't there something I was supposed to do?
Yeah.
After I set like 4 appointments, but there's something I was going to do today. What was that? I did learn in that process that I saw from the beginning, I saw a lot of people who on paper looked like they would be the best thing since sliced bread, who definitely got a faster start than me.
Yeah.
And I'd see those people make permanent decisions off of temporary emotions. They would just get in their own head, and it would just be an all or nothing. This is the end. This is the line in the sand. I didn't do a whole lot of that. I was always like, well, it'll be better tomorrow.
Got it.
And, Sean would always say, it's not just going to get better.
Right.
And that's true. But if you're actively moving, it's okay to say it's going to be better tomorrow, because the opposite of that is just to be like, well, this is it. It's either now or never.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people, it becomes never, because they just get hyper emotional over something that if you just give it enough time, it's really not that big of a deal anyway.
Right. So on those moments, like the Wednesday, for example, when you're like, dude, I quit. What was it that kind of put you over the edge on that day?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of it's just people problems.
Yeah.
Communication issues with people.
Yeah.
Rejection, people canceling, chargebacks, being misunderstood. Going out to do a bunch of appointments and getting a bunch of no-shows.
Got it.
The stress of a lead bill. Like you have a lead bill, and then you have to make a sale. And the thing that was most frustrating, what's interesting in this business is like, so I went to this, I don't want to call it a marriage counseling, because it wasn't marriage counseling, but it was a premarital counseling for when me and my wife got married. And the pastor did this illustration. This was before we even got married. And he said, you're going to learn a lot in life from conflict. Like conflict is going to be your best teacher.
Yeah.
And he goes, here's what conflict is in marriage. And then I'll show you with my hands, but he's like, your wife is here and you're here. And then your wife is like, come here. And then you're like, no. And then she's like, please. And then you're like, no. And so now what people start to do is they start to move closer together. And he goes, and everybody thinks that's good, but that's what we call compromise. And compromise is bad, because compromise is like a bridge. Yeah. You wouldn't drive on a compromised bridge. Right. He goes, what you want to be able to do is negotiate. So if your wife's here and she's like, come here, or you're like, come here, and she goes, no, and you're like, please, and she's like, no, then the question you should ask yourself is, I wonder what I have to do to get her to come over here. Or why am I taking it so personal that she doesn't want to come to me?
Right.
So the way you bridge the gap is you walk over to her, So that was, for me, the question that I was asking myself when things didn't go right. What was so frustrating in this business was just the understanding that, like, I would run into this conflict or these objections or these things would keep coming up. Yeah. And the thing that was so frustrating was the fact that I hadn't learned enough to overcome that yet, even though I knew that I should have learned enough to know how to handle that objection that I keep getting 11 times.
Got it.
So the thing that I understood was, most of the time the person I was mad at was the disappointment in myself for not doing what I knew I should have done.
Yeah. So you're kind of projecting that on whatever the case, the leads, the client, this lead bill, these chargebacks, instead of going, hey, what's Trey doing?
Yeah. So 100% personal responsibility for where I was. And it was nobody else's fault, and nobody did me wrong.
Right.
And Andrew wasn't mean to me. And, so-and-so didn't hurt my feelings. And maybe they meant to hurt my feelings, but maybe they're having a bad day. It's okay. Yeah. I have bad days too. Yep. And just, having a good sense of humor and a bad memory. Yeah. Like not holding grudges.
Right.
Movement, continuing to get up and just move.
Yeah.
Move
when did
fast.
you get to that point, Trey? Because, I mean, you've had these, struggles at times, right?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't just like one day it switched, or was it? When did you realize, like, you know what? A lot of this shit is on me.
Yeah. I think I had that the whole time.
Yeah.
But so there was ups and downs. I think what I learned to do is just not be down as long. You know?
Okay.
But I always knew that if I took personal responsibility, I could take personal responsibility for my attitude.
Yeah.
I could take personal responsibility for the people I listen to. I guarded my associations a lot.
Yeah.
That helped me. You know, if I was thinking a certain way, I would ask myself, why do I think that?
Yeah.
You know, what is it really that bad? Like, just perspective. I remember at the first conference, Sean was walking around. He had his backpack.
Yeah.
And there was this fella just like following him everywhere. And he finally like cornered him before he tried to go into the auditorium door. And Sean turned around and he goes, "Hey, bud, do you have cancer?" And the guy goes, "No." And he goes, "Cheer up. It's not that bad." And he slapped him on the shoulder and he walked in the room. And I was like, yeah, that's right. It's not that bad. It's like, you know, his client canceled. It's about as bad as it really gets. It's never, Andrew would always tell me it's never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it is either.
100%.